guys, today I want to talk to you all about my own hands-on experience with the Nintendo Switch version of My Hero Academia 1's Justice. Now note that once again, these are my own personal experiences with the game. So you guys will definitely have a different experience than I have if you were to get your hands on the game. So it's okay if our opinions don't match. Also, this is the Japanese version of the game, but I'm fairly certain that the English version of the game will function exactly the same way as the Japanese version. But with that out of the way, let's get right into it. Starting off, the Nintendo Switch version of My Hero Academia 1's Justice runs at 720p 30 frames per second. Now, though people may not think of this as a particularly good thing, the fact that an Unreal Engine game that's running on the Nintendo Switch that's able to handle that type of graphical power and frame rate is honestly not a bad thing. Granted, the PS4 version does run at 1080p 60 frames per second, but we do know that the Nintendo Switch is weaker than the PS4. But besides all of that, it really didn't impact me that much while I was playing the game, because at the end of the day, the graphics were still really breathtaking, they were stunning, and they were visually appealing while I was playing either the story mode, training mode, online, etc, etc. So even though it's not as good as the PS4 version's graphics, the graphics in general on the Nintendo Switch are still pretty decent. For the first ever My Hero game, I personally believe that it has a decent character roster, because it has more popular characters like Deku and All Might and All For One, and much more obscure but still popular characters like Jiro, Kaminari, and Kirishima. Now, of course, there are some characters that I personally wished were in the game, characters such as Endeavor, which I would like to see how his fire moves would work in the game or how he would overall play like, but unfortunately he's not in the game. But even so, for the first ever console game, we have a total of 20 characters to choose from, and I think from the list that we have, it's honestly not that bad. Plus, there's always room for expansion with DLC, so for all we know, the characters that we may be missing in the base roster could potentially come in the future. But for what it's worth, what we have right now, we have a solid 20 characters to choose from, which I honestly think, for the first My Hero console game, is not a bad amount. Speaking of characters, this game allows you to customize the main cast of characters to your liking. Now, you can't really change anything as extreme, such as their quirks or special attacks that they're able to execute, but you are able to change their outfits, which is honestly a really cool touch, because you're able to go into the character customize section, and within there you can edit your character and make them look however you want them to look like. For example, you can have Kirishima have Aizawa's goggles, or like Stain's scarf, or maybe his blades, or All Might's hair, etc, etc. And you can have different color options for said outfits and other accessories within that menu. So I think it's a nice touch, because I know we live in the day and age where created characters is kind of a staple for anime games now, but even though this game doesn't have a character creation system, they still try to give us that creative option by having the ability to customize and edit the look of the main cast of characters. So we don't have a created character system, but we do have a character customization system with the main characters, which is not a bad option either. My Hero Academia 1's Justice is extremely accessible to anyone, because its combat allows anyone to either execute auto combos with the normal setting, which primarily has you attack with one button, or you can try the manual setting, which allows you to have a bit more freedom in how you decide to string your combos. So the fact that it gives you an option to decide your playstyle is actually a really good thing, and personally speaking, this is something that I wish a lot of other anime games would try to implement, but at the same time, the combat in this game isn't too diverse, if you will. It doesn't really have combo density, but it is still accessible to anybody who's willing to pick up the game and play it. One major pro about this game is the fact that its netcode is absolutely phenomenal. Like, there has not been a moment where I've played online and have experienced lag. Once again, note that this is the Japanese version of My Hero Academia 1's Justice, which more than likely means that we're connecting onto Japanese servers, and with that, I still have not experienced any lag whatsoever while playing this game online. That is an extremely good thing, because most anime games nowadays really do struggle to have a solid online experience, and I don't think that this game, as far as the netcode goes, will have that issue, because on the Nintendo Switch version, it has been extremely smooth since I've started playing this game. So definite kudos to them, because it's not often that we see anime games have solid online. And with this being the Nintendo Switch version of the game, one big question would be, how does it run in handheld mode? And honestly, it runs the exact same as it does in TV mode, because it runs at the same resolution, at the same frame rate, and from my own personal experience, there were no performance drops whatsoever. I was able to pick up the game, play it in handheld mode exactly the same way that I would be able to if I was playing it in TV mode. Because normally, Switch games would have some sort of decrease in resolution or decrease in performance in order for it to be able to run properly or somewhat properly in handheld mode, whereas with this game, that's not the case. So it's honestly a really good thing that they managed to keep the resolution and quality of the game the exact same that you would experience on TV mode in handheld mode. One thing that I really did not like, and I know would definitely bother a lot of people, is the fact that this game has extremely long loading times. Now, this is something that could be fixed within a patch in the future, but in a general retrospect, it takes about 30 and sometimes up to 50 seconds to a minute to be able to load into an online battle or even a cutscene within the game. This is an extremely big problem because most people nowadays don't have that type of attention span to look at a blank screen or a screen listing some sort of like feature of the game or whatever the case may be, because we bought the game, we want to get into the action. So having extremely long loading times, especially within the range of 30 seconds to a full minute, is completely unacceptable. I really do think that they should try to execute a day one patch, if not like get a patch out as soon as possible to speed up processing times within the game so that the loading times can be cut down, hopefully significantly, at the very least maybe by half, potentially more than that. One thing that could be a con but isn't really a con is the fact that the combat is extremely simplistic. Now, this is good for people who just want to pick up a game and play, but in a general retrospect, with this game having ranked matches and whatnot, this really isn't a good thing. Now, primarily because people want options while they fight, and having simplistic combat doesn't necessarily give you that option. I did say earlier that you have the normal section, which is you being able to execute auto combos, and then a manual section where you're able to input your commands. However, it's more so in comparison with Guilty Gear and having the stylish mode and then the regular mode where you're able to either do like flashy combos by pressing like one button with stylish or being able to execute your own combos with the normal mode. But think of that in a dumbed down version. That's how this combat is. Again, I personally don't really mind it, but I do know that it would be bothersome to a lot of people out there, which is why I wanted to address it. This next issue is something that rarely happens, but it does affect both the PS4 and the Nintendo Switch versions of My Hero Academia 1's Justice, and that is the game experience frame rate drops. Now, in a general retrospect, frame rate drops are never a good thing in any video game, but it's not as extreme as, let's say for the PS4 version, it drops from 60 frames to like 35 frames, or the Switch version drops from 30 frames to 15 frames. It's not that significant. It's more so along the lines of the Switch version going from 30 frames to 25 frames when there's too many things going on the screen. For example, if I were to use a special attack and I were to have my support come out and then my opponent were to throw out both of their supports, since there's too much going on the screen, that would cause the game to slow down a bit, but it's something that rarely happens though. So it's still an issue, but it's something that most definitely can be fixed in the future with a patch. But for what you're getting right out of the box, that is something you do have to look out for. As a fighting game fan, I'm always looking out for different type of mechanics within a game. And unfortunately, one thing that I did notice with this game is that ranged characters have major priority over close range characters. Now, for example, characters such as All For One, Dabi, and Jiro all have projectile-based attacks. The problem is, for the regular projectiles, there is no limitation system on how many times you can use it, for example, like a stamina system of sorts. Therefore, they're able to repeatedly and constantly spam ranged attacks to keep close range characters such as Kirishima at bay, and if you block, you take chip damage all the while. So I really think that this is extremely unbalanced because I've noticed online that a lot of people are only playing as ranged characters because of this. And I do think that it should be balanced ASAP. Like, there does need to be a balance patch for this game if they're able to get it out at day one, or if they're able to get it out within the first month or so. But I do think that a balance patch is heavily needed for this game. Otherwise, I don't see, especially the online mode for this game, lasting very long. Segueing from that, Toga needs to be patched ASAP. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoy Toga as a character in the My Hero series, but in this game in particular, she is unfathomably broken to the point where I truly believe this game was not beta tested. Now, you guys may be wondering, what's the issue with Toga? Well, earlier I was talking about projectile-based attacks being the meta of this game because of how safe and over-prioritized it is. She has all of those assets on top of being able to execute loops in the game. Now, this game has a type of quote-unquote break system where if you take too much damage, you'll end up flying out of a combo, but when you fly out of the combo, you'll be dazed. And when you're dazed, you're immobile, and that allows them to continue a combo, which ultimately leads to loops being executable within this game. This is 100% unacceptable. Like, I really do believe that this game was not beta tested because this is something that should have been discoverable way early on and fixed before this game even launched. So I hope to God that they patch Toga because a lot of people use her online. I don't want them to nerf her into the ground, but I do want them to balance her to the point where, again, projectiles aren't over prioritized and she not having the ability to loop characters into a complete death combo. It's completely unfair. The last issue I have with this game is the support system. Now, in a general retrospect, the support system does work. The problem is that the gauge builds far too slowly. Now, referring back to the issue I had with Toga and the previous issue I had with ranged characters, support characters actually can help you out in this regard because they can help you break out of a loop from Toga and they can help you get away from ranged characters who are keeping you at bay. But there are two major issues that happen with this. One being that your support character can get trapped within the attack. So that means if you're within a loop from Toga, they could potentially get trapped within that loop, then they'll get knocked away and you're stuck in the loop. Or if you're fighting a ranged character, they'll get hit by the ranged attack and then they'll go away and you're stuck in the corner. So this would not be a major problem if the support gauge actually did build much faster, but it doesn't, which means that for a majority of the match, you're going to be stuck either in the corner or within a loop. I do not think that this is a good thing at all. Again, this is something that can be fixed with a patch. They can easily increase the speed of the recovery for the support gauge, but again, out of the box, this is something that you guys are going to experience, and I just hope to God that it's something that they fix in the future, because I know for a fact a lot of people are not going to enjoy this type of experience online. As a My Hero fan, I'm honestly really happy that they finally managed to make a console game representing the My Hero series. But apart from some of the really good pros, such as character customization, online stability, and even handheld mode, the cons still do outweigh the pros, and because of that, I really do not believe that this game currently is worth the $60. Now again, these are issues that can be fixed with a patch, but from what you're going to get right out of the box, this game is most definitely not worth the $60. If they were to maybe put it on sale for $30, then I would suggest probably giving it a shot, but currently it is just not worth the money. And it really sucks because I'm actually a really big My Hero fan, but I digress. Still, what did you guys think about the review? Is there something that you guys may be skeptical about or may need some clarification about? Or maybe you're still interested in getting the game? Whatever is on your mind, let me know in the comment section below. But with that being said, I'm Ndukauba, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.